All right. Hello, everybody. So, welcome to our weekly training that we always do here with Adulting University. This week is a really good one. I mean, they're always really good. I try to give you guys as much value as I can, really kind of help you navigate all these things of parenting and life skills and all of that. So, I know sometimes our trainings don't feel like homeschooly, but the reality is the stuff that we're covering is parenting, right? It's how to parent, how to really prepare our kids for life after high school, which is our entire mission. Obviously, we do that through courses, curriculum, and other things. But the reality is, the trainings that we're doing, they might not be like, here's how to homeschool, here's how to make your homeschooling journey easier, here's how to start homeschooling, or blah, blah, blah. But all of this stuff really does help you in your homeschooling journey because these are things I see all the time. I'm in a ton of Facebook groups for homeschoolers. I'm a homeschooler myself. My son's in a co-op type program, and we'll be homeschooling our daughter as well when she's older. But the reality is, these are things I see all the time. If you have teenagers, they're going to give you sass. They're going to give you attitude. They're going to have a hard time regulating emotions when something goes wrong. I mean, I see it in the homeschooling world with students that are in co-ops where, they're having a hard time connecting or they're being bullied or picked on. And I mean, all those things still happen. Just because you're homeschooling doesn't mean you're immune to those types of things. And the reality is, even if you try to put your kiddo in a bubble, they're going to, they're going to experience this stuff eventually, even if it's way after they graduate, in their workplace, in their marriage. And so teaching these skills now as part of your homeschooling journey really, really is so important. And so encourage you to, come to our trainings live so you can talk to me, you can ask questions, you can really engage with us because, that's where you get the most bang for your buck, right? Which is right now free for you. So take advantage of that and come spend some time with me. And even if you're watching this as a replay, I mean, still engage in the comments. I go back and look to see, what your ratings were, what questions you had, all that kind of stuff. So feel free to do that, drop that stuff in the comments as if you're watching it live, even if it is a replay. So just something to be aware of there. So today we're talking about the better regulation of your teen's emotions. So let me share my screen so we can go ahead and get started. All right, so yes, today we're doing teaching your teen better regulation, right? Of how to better manage their emotions, how to better manage their stress, and be able to handle stress and all those things. So obviously, again, I always do introduction for me, especially for any new people. I know we've gotten a lot of great new group members lately, which is awesome. So I'm Tracy Baconhaster. I'm the founder of Adulting University, where we equip homeschool families to effectively prepare your teams for adulthood. So that whole life after high school, those next steps they take, whether it's to a career, to an apprenticeship program, to the military, to college, doesn't matter. All the skills that we teach and help students with really helps them no matter what direction they end up going. So like I always love to do with our trainings is kind of have a check-in of like, tell me if this sounds familiar. Okay. And so we're going to start with you as the parent first, but then we're going to look at your teenager a little bit too. So when your teen isn't able to regulate their emotions, you as the parent often feel maybe frustration due to constantly dealing with the emotional outbursts, maybe tantrums, and it can be incredibly frustrating, right? That can be a lot. Maybe you're experiencing stress from the unpredictability and intensity of a teen's emotional reactions, which maybe can be a significant source of stress for you, right? If they're a teen, you're not really sure how they're going to react to something. Maybe they have outbursts, especially for our kiddos that maybe have some of the learning disabilities and other things where they can have more extreme emotions and reactions because they aren't always able to control themselves, right? So it puts you in the parent as that like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? Maybe sometimes you feel helpless, right? When you don't know how to effectively help your teenager manage those emotions, right? You kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to help them. I don't know where to start with this. It makes me feel bad, right? That sadness, because watching your teen struggle emotionally can be heartbreaking, right? We've all been there where somebody we care about is hurting. And when it's our kids, it's even worse, right? It's like a knife to your heart when you're like, they're hurting. You can tell they're frustrated. You can tell they're experiencing these emotions and they don't know how to manage it and how to handle it, right? That first breakup or friend drama or whatever might happen that starts to really bring up those emotions. And it just makes us sad as parents, right? We're sad for our kids. We want them to be able to do this stuff. So a lot of the times we feel these things as parents when our kids are not being able to regulate their emotions, right? We get stressed, we get frustrated, we get sad or helpless feeling and all these things. So if any of this relates to you, drop stressed in the chat for me. So just drop it down in the comments in the chat if this is relatable, right? If you've experienced some of these emotions with your teen, your preteen, your teenager. Obviously, the younger ones tend to have sometimes more extreme outbursts because they really don't have a lot of regulation. As they get older, they do get a little bit better, but sometimes it's still not great. So just tell me in the comments, stressed, if you are experiencing some of these. So what happens, when we are experiencing these emotions ourselves and our teens constantly do, dysregulation can cause us to end up saying or thinking things like, I don't know what to do to help my teen calm down and handle their feelings. Like, I have no idea what to do in this moment. Am I doing something wrong? Should I be handling this differently? Right? When our teen is way sky high with their emotions, or maybe they're pulling away or any of that stuff, we sometimes start to question, am I doing something wrong? Is it me? Right? Is it my fault? Sometimes it's things just simple as it hurts, to see my teen so upset and not know how to help them, right? That, oh my gosh, like it just hurts me not knowing how to help them. And maybe even sometimes you have this, like, I'm anxious about how this is going to affect my teen's future, relationships and success, right? If you're like, man, my kid cannot control themselves and their outbursts or their emotions, like this is going to affect them in their career, in their relationships, right? And so it worries you. You start to get that worry around it, right? If any of these statements are familiar to you, just tell me in the chat, drop anxious in the chat if any of these seem familiar to you. If you're like, man, I have felt these, right? I've felt these emotions. I've thought these things. I want to know, right? I want to know kind of where you feel in this space. Now let's talk about your teenager, because this is all about helping them, right? I mean, yes, we have these experiences too, but at the end of the day, it's them that's dysregulated. So this is probably what they're likely experiencing or feeling in those moments of dysregulation, and not being able to regulate those emotions, or when they're stressed out about something, right? So they're probably feeling that frustration and overwhelm as well. They possibly start pushing others away when they're overloaded or stressed. So some kids blow up, some kids withdraw, right? So you're going to get that extreme, just like anybody else, right? You have usually two different types of people. When you get stressed out and overwhelmed, there's the people that are at their capacity. And so one little thing sets them over the edge and they're like constantly like blowing their top. And then you got the ones that just shut down, right? Maybe they start to be like, they feel like they're being treated unjustly, or that life isn't fair, right? And we're going to talk about some of the statements here in a second, because you're like, oh gosh, I hear that one all the time, right? Maybe they feel like they're being singled out or victimized in a way, or having a lack of motivation or feelings of hopelessness, right? When they really are getting overwhelmed by their emotions and stuff going on around them, they might just not be motivated to do anything. And sometimes they seek that isolation to avoid dealing with things as well. And sometimes they start to go to other, not healthy habits and other things like gaming and losing hours on their cell phones and all this other stuff, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because it's not, they're not in a great place because they don't know how to manage what's going on. And here's what usually comes out of their mouth, because they aren't able to process those emotions and feelings, right? The stuff that we just talked about, they're not able to process it. They don't really know how to put in words their feelings or what's going on. And so tell me if you've heard any of these before. So like the whole leave me alone, right? Leave me alone. I'm done. I can't do anymore. Just stop. Leave me alone right now. Maybe nobody understands me, or I'm the only one, right? That feeling of nobody gets me. I'm the only one experiencing this. This is so unfair. We hear that one a lot in our house, of like, that's not fair. And I'm like, life's not fair sometimes, buddy, right? And that's the reality of it, but that's what they feel like. It's not fair. And they're, a lot of times they might be right, might not be fair. Maybe you hear some combination of this, right? If I don't care anymore, or I'm tired of everything, or what's the point? What's the point in doing this assignment? Like, why am I even bothering, right? I don't care anymore if I don't go down this road, or this doesn't happen. So tell me in the chat, have you heard any of these before, or anything else? What are other statements that maybe your teenager is saying pretty frequently when it comes to their emotions and frustrations around this kind of topic? So what ends up happening when your teen goes through life like this, right? What happens when they continue to struggle and not be able to regulate their emotions or handle stress? Okay, so what can happen? Number one, that emotional turmoil that they're experiencing can lead to lack of focus and motivation, right? Which we talked about. They can start to not focus on things. They cannot be motivated to do things. If this is your teenager, drop motivation in the chat for me. Sometimes, every teen operates differently. So some just are like, I just can't focus anymore. I'm not motivated anymore. Maybe your teen has frequent emotional outbursts, tantrums, or even maybe aggressive behavior. If this is your teen, drop outbursts in the chat for me. Maybe they're having ongoing emotional struggles that lead to a negative self-image and low self-esteem, right? If they're really struggling with their emotions, especially if it's coming from feelings from other people, they start to maybe have that negative self-image or their self-esteem starts to drop. So if this is your teenager, drop image for me in the chat. Maybe they have chronic stress and poor emotional regulation that can cause teens to have mental health issues, right? I mean, this is one of the driving forces behind anxiety and depression in our youth is that chronic stress and not be able to regulate emotions, not be able to have that ability to navigate when somebody's mean to them or when something doesn't go their way. And so they start to have anxiety around it and then leads to depression and it just kind of spirals from there, right? If this is maybe your teenager, drop mental health for me in the chat. Teens may withdraw from social interactions, feeling misunderstood or unable to connect. So this is when we start to see them withdrawing from friends. Maybe they're withdrawing from family get-togethers or your family, you guys were always so close and now they're pulling away, right? If you start to see that withdrawal happening, a lot of times because they're feeling misunderstood, they feel like they aren't connecting with people because again, those emotions are really kind of controlling them at this point. And so if that's your teenager, drop withdrawal for me in the chat. And then finally, maybe teens might resort to avoidance behaviors. So these are things when they do in excess, right? Excessive gaming or social media use, right? They just go. We see this a lot with teen boys. Boys tend to go down this route pretty heavily, a lot more than girls do, where on the gaming side, where they want to just game and game and game. They have no motivation to do anything. You see this a lot too with older students. So I see this a lot with young men that are, ages 18, 19, even in their early 20s, where they have no motivation to get a job. They have no motivation to do anything. All they want to do is sit there and game and veg out and just get lost in that world. And that's because they were never taught years ago how to regulate their emotions, how to, navigate stress and all these other things. So now that's their way of just avoiding all of it, right? It's like, I'm just going to sit here and game. If I don't get a job, I don't have to worry about getting fired or dealing with people or blah, 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 right? Unfortunately, society slaps say, hey, that's the laziness on there. And there is some of that. And there is some of that entitlement too. And sometimes there's that aspect with parenting where they've done everything for their kids. And now their kid has no motivation to do anything. Because why? Because mom's done it for me. But a lot of times too, it can be behind this emotional window as well. So this avoidance of avoiding any interactions because it is safe, right? And again, like we talked about in the beginning, the reality is just because we associate a lot of this with public school students, right? You hear about this stuff so much more public school kids because it's prominent, it's public schools, it's everywhere to be heard of. Homeschool kiddos are not immune to this, right? If you're involved in co-ops, if they have any kind of friends, or maybe they don't have any friends, both aspects can lead to this stuff, right? If I don't have any friends, I feel disconnected, I feel unloved, I feel unworthy. If I maybe have friends, but there's some unhealthiness going on there, or I don't know how to regulate those emotions with those friendships. So I want this to be very clear that homeschool kiddos are not immune to this stuff. Every single one of us in this entire world need to learn how to better regulate our emotions and manage stress because that's what's coming for us, right? We all have experienced it. If you're an adult and you've been in the workforce at all or out in the real world at all for even a few months, you're going to encounter this stuff. So that's why we have to equip our teenagers. So we talked a lot about like some of the negatives and all those things, but I want to bring it back to a good thing because that's what this training is about, is to equip you so that this bad stuff and the things that we're talking about don't happen or are better for you. Okay. So good news. We're going to cover this today of teaching your teen how to better regulate themselves, because when your teen is able to regulate their emotions, they can have healthier relationships with family, friends, and peers. They can develop resilience, which helps them lead a more balanced and positive outlook on life, right? That is, resilience is key here when it comes to regulation. They're able to concentrate better on academics and other things that are going on in life, leading to improved understanding and retention, right? Being able to, if they can focus on the stuff going on around them, they will do better in life, right? And so if you want your teen to have this, you want them to be able to have healthy relationships, be able to be resilient, be able to help work and navigate their emotions in a healthy way. Drop resilience in the chat for me. And I know we all want this for our kids, right? So I should see a lot of resiliences in this chat. And you as the parent, when your teen's able to regulate, you get to experience less stress and anxiety because now you know your teen can better manage life, right? So then that stress reduces on you. You're going to get to have stronger bonds and more positive interactions within your family, which I think is what we all want, right? Less of those tantrums or outbursts or emotional dysregulation and craziness going on all over the place. Maybe you're going to be able to feel more confident and validated in your efforts as a parent and being able to see your team navigate these challenges successfully, right? This is where we want to be as parents, right? So if you want this as a parent and this sounds good to you, drop positive in the chat for me, okay? All right. So again, if you've been around Adulting University, you know we do everything in 4 pillars. So this week is very similar to our last training we did, but Adulting University, we have our 4 pillars and blocks that make up everything we do and teach. Today, our subject falls in our social and emotional skills pillar of our essential life skills house, basically. And within that pillar, we took our 4 blocks and made them into their own. So here's our kind of mini pillars, if you will, for our social and emotional skills that every teenager needs to have. So number 1 is emotional intelligence. When we talk about emotional intelligence, it's basically what we're talking about today. So I'm not going to dive into it too much, but emotional intelligence is that ability to manage and regulate your own emotions, being able to understand other people's emotions. There's a lot to go into that. And then there's problem solving, which is pretty self-explanatory, the ability to be able to solve problems, be able to research and use logic and all those things. Empathy is one of our other pillars. Again, we're not talking about that one so much today, but it is one of those very important foundational pillars every teenager needs to have. And then collaboration. So, we believe that emotional regulation, which again is what we're talking about today, is an essential building block within our emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence is key to a successful life. I will tell you, there are so many people in this world that do not have a high emotional intelligence, and you can see it, right? If you look at their social media, if you look at how they interact with their family members, their coworkers, their friends, like you will be able to start to tell the ones that are regulated and the ones that are not, right? Emotional intelligence truly is being able to control yourself, control how you feel, how you think, how you process, and being able to adapt to other people. I mean, it's a very powerful skill. And that's what we're focusing on today. So as always, I want to do a quick check-in with you to kind of set the stage for us. So we're going to have you rate yourselves 1 to 4 in the chat for me. I'm going to read you 2 statements. After each statement, tell me where you feel like you are. 1 is not at all, like 0, not good, not doing well. 4 is 100% nailed it, got it, very good, that kind of rating. So tell me where you're at with this. So first statement I'm going to read to you is I am confident in my own ability to manage and regulate my emotions. I know we're coming out of the gate strong in this one because you're like, oh gosh, Tracy, you just put me on the spot. Like, what do you mean I have to rate myself on my own regulations and my own abilities? But here's the reality. If we aren't regulated, how are we going to teach our kids how to regulate? So we have to do a check-in for us too on this one. So yes, you're going to be getting a little parenting coaching in this training today, guys. Sorry, but it's important, right? When we all have work to do in this space, including myself, right? I am not perfect. I've gotten so much better over the years as I've learned all these things, but I still have my moments, right? Where I'm not regulated and I might explode or I might withdraw, right? We all have that, but understanding, do you have the ability to manage and regulate your emotions? So 1 to 4, tell me in the chat where you feel like you are. Second statement. I am able to successfully manage stress, change, and pressure well. I know this is a tough one, and some of you might be like, I don't want to put my rating in here because it's not a good rating. That's okay. That's what I want to know. I want to know where you feel like you are first before we can even talk about your teenager. And you're going to see, and this training is a little bit different where we're doing a lot of regulating rating ourselves and what we can do with our teenagers. But we are going to do a lot of self-awareness in this one as the parent, because again, if we aren't able to do these things, how are we teaching our kids these things? So it's okay if you're a 1. It's okay if you're a 2 on this. That's okay. Again, that's normal. It's being honest with yourself and knowing, where am I in this space? Because everything we're going to talk about today, you can do too, right? You can do this stuff as well. So I'm really excited because I put this in as simple of a process as I could today. But today we're doing 7 steps to emotional regulation and stress management, because these are things you can do for yourself to help improve your own emotional intelligence and emotional regulation. And it's something you can teach your teen as well. Okay. Number 1 is our self-awareness. And I'm going to go through these briefly, and then we're going to dive into them a little deeper here in a second. But self-awareness, right? That ability to recognize and understand your own emotions and triggers. Okay. This is important, right? This is your own self-awareness, your teen's self-awareness. Are you able to recognize and understand your own emotions and the things that trigger you, right? What offends you? Why does that offend you? Having those kinds of conversations and understanding. The second step is then now the self-regulation piece. So being able to control your emotional reactions and responses in a variety of situations, right? At home, with your spouse, with your kids, with your coworkers, with your family, your friends, right? And same goes for your teen. Once you're aware, now we have to learn how to regulate. And the other steps are going to be ways that can help you start to regulate those. So number 3 is our mindfulness. So staying present and aware of the current movement or moment without judgment. So being present in the moment, not holding something against somebody, not thinking about things that happened 2 years ago, being present in the moment on what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? What's going on in this moment? And having that judgment removed, right? Not judging that person, not judging yourself, which can be very, very hard, right? And then reframing. This is changing those negative thought patterns into positive and constructive ones. It's saying, okay, I'm going to reframe how I'm thinking about this, and that's going to help shift my emotions. Okay. And again, we're going to talk about these a little more depth here shortly. Then we have our step 5, which is healthy coping strategies. So these are ways that are healthy ways to manage that stress, right? This isn't those unhealthy ways of vegging out in front of the TV or video games or alcohol or drugs or any of those other things, right? This is very healthy ways to help you regulate and cope. 6 is a support system. We need a solid support system. Our kids need a solid support system. So creating and maintaining supportive relationships with family and friends. And then finally is empathy. So if you've noticed, those first 6 steps are all really about you, right? Us individually, right? Our emotions, our thought patterns, how we're managing things. It's all about us. And number 7 is other people. Recognizing and understanding the emotions of others, right? Empathy is that last step, and it is a powerful one, because we are not going to be able to recognize and understand other people's emotions if we can't even understand ourselves. So our stuff is first. We got a lot more things we got to work on for ourselves. And then that last one is understanding other people. Notice it's not changing other people or telling other people how to be emotionally intelligent. It's understanding them and their emotions, right? So these are our steps we're going to go through. Like I always do, we're rating these, right? So I want you to rate yourself. We're going to have 2 statements per step, and I want you to rate yourself in the chat, okay? In the comments. Tell me where you feel like you are with this, okay? With each of these statements. Again, number 1 being like, nope, 0, bad, not good. 4 being like, yep, nailed it, awesome, beautiful, right? So our first step was our self-awareness. So I want to ask you first, as the parent, rate yourself for me in the chat. I understand and can identify my own emotional triggers and responses. Now, here's the thing with this. This is not just superficial, okay? I'm going to stop share for a second so I can talk to you guys. This is not superficial. This is deep. This is not, oh, I got offended because this person said this thing. Okay, but why? It's the deeper piece of what about whatever they said triggered you? Like, why was that a trigger for you? And why did you respond the way you did? Okay, so the first statement is powerful, right? I understand and I can identify my own emotional triggers and responses. Not a lot of us can do that. We get offended by things and then we're just like, why did I get offended by that? Why is that bothering me? Right? And we don't always know. And so that is why this is so powerful, because we as parents have to understand and know this stuff first. Okay. So tell me in the chat where you fall. Our second one, let me get back to screen share for you here, is on the teen side for you to help your teenager. I regularly help my teen recognize and label their emotions accurately. Okay, so tell me in the chat 1 to 4 where you feel like you're at with this. When we talk about this piece of regulation, this is those conversations with your teenager, maybe not in the middle of their tantrum, but once they've calmed down a little bit, helping them understand, okay, what triggered me? What were those emotions I was feeling? Helping them label and truly understand that. That is so important, right? That's how we can start to teach our kids. We have to also model it, which is why we have our first statement there. But we also then have to show our teenager and help them understand what they're feeling and what they're going through. So tell me 1 through 4, are you able to help your teenager recognize and label those emotions with accuracy? Because sometimes that's hard for even us to do. Like, I'm not sure why they're feeling the things they're feeling. All right. Our next one. So again, rating yourself 1 to 4 is self-regulation. So again, this is those controlling our emotional reactions, our responses in various situations, helping resist that urge to act on immediate emotional impulses. And let's be honest, I mean, if you even flip on the news or look at social media, that self-regulation for most adults is out the window. If we're being honest, like you flip on anything, especially the election season and all the crap going on right now, it is so easy to see, wow, people are so not able to control those emotional reactions because they're just spitting out whatever, they're commenting on people's comments, they're just saying things that are really awful to each other and towards other people. And you're just like, that's not very nice. Like, that's not a great example we're leaving for our children. And it all comes to self-regulation. If we just act, right? Oh my gosh, that person offended me, and I'm just going to start a keyboard warrior going to town, right? What's that going to do for anybody? That's not helping anybody. And yet that's where we find a lot of ourselves. A lot of the time we get offended by something or hurt by something and we just immediately react, right? Our spouse said something that made us mad, so we ripped them up one side and down the other, right? Our kids made us mad, we said something we shouldn't have said. That self-regulation is where that starts to come into play. So I'm going to have you rate yourself first. I practice techniques to manage my emotional reactions and remain calm. Again, if you fly off the handles or you become a Karen keyboard warrior, which again, we've all done it. I've done it before too. This is some area we probably need to work on, but tell me in the chat where you are 1 to 4. Where do you feel like you're at with this? Do you have techniques? Are you able to manage those emotional reactions and remain calm when you're triggered by something, when you're offended by something, when your emotions start to run high? The next statement, again, focusing on our teenager. I teach my teen strategies to control their impulses and respond calmly in stressful situations. And notice it's teach, not told. I didn't tell my teenager what they need to do. I'm teaching them how they can find strategies to control their own impulses and respond calmly when their emotions are running high or stressful situations, right? When they're being triggered by something. So 1 to 4, where do you feel like you're at in this training? And again, it's okay if you're 1 or 2. That's very common. I would imagine for most of this training, everybody's going to be in pretty low ratings because that's the reality of it. Unfortunately, it's kind of where we're all at these days. So our next step is mindfulness. So again, this is being that present, staying in the present, being aware of the current moment without any judgment of people. So these are ways, all kinds of different techniques and ways that you can do this. It could be breathing exercises. It could be just exercise in general. It's finding what helps you to understand that. So statement 1, again, on you as the parent. I use mindfulness practices to stay present and manage my stress effectively. So do you have a way to stay present in the moment to manage your stress right now? 1 to 4, tell me where you're at in the chat. Our second statement. I guide my teen in mindfulness exercises to help them stay calm and focused, right? Do you have something you can help your teen navigate for them to be able to stay present, to be able to stay focused and calm in stressful situations or when emotions are running high? Again, it's okay if you're 1 or 2, very normal, very common, but tell me in the chat where you feel like you are. All right, our next one. Reframing your mind. So this reframing is our next shift because it kind of goes hand in hand with everything else, right? Our mindfulness, if we want to reshift our mind, we have to be present in the moment. If we're not present in the moment, we're not shifting anything because we're thinking about this, and oh, this is going to happen down the road, and this is what happened before. We need to be present in the moment, and then we start to reframe. So when we talk about reframing, we're talking about when we reframe something, it's shifting the focus, right? It's saying, okay, here's how I'm looking at this. I need to reframe it to look at it a different way. And reframing is so powerful when it comes to emotional regulation and stress management because it's taking a negative thing that's making our emotions be negative and high and feisty and all these things to shifting it so it's more positive. Looking at things like opportunity, this is where growth mindset and all these other things come in. But we have to be able to do that reframe, and we have to be able to teach our kids how to do that reframe, because otherwise being present moment's great, being able to kind of have processes to help you is awesome. But if we're still looking at something negatively, it's going to keep our emotions there instead of shifting them. So this is where that reframe happens. So let's figure out where you feel like you are and then where you feel like your teen is. So first one, I actively work on changing negative thought patterns into positive ones. So how do you feel about your ability to do this? So this is you as the parent. How do you feel about this? 1 to 4, actively work on changing negative thought patterns into positive ones. So are you constantly, man, I'm aware that this is a negative thought pattern. I need to shift it to be more positive. And again, it's okay if you're not on a 4. Most people are not. We're naturally negative by nature as human beings. Our second statement is on your teen. I help my teen reframe their negative thoughts and view challenges from different perspectives. So helping your kiddo see a negative situation through a different lens, being able to shift that pattern and thought pattern to see it from a different perspective. Could be a positive perspective, could just be seeing it from a different perspective, right? Oh my gosh, my best friend did this and they really hurt me, and on and on. And they could be justifiably hurt and those emotions could be justified, but it's still helping them see, okay, well, what was maybe going on in the background? Why do you think your friend did this? It wasn't to intentionally hurt you, maybe X, Y, and Z, right? It's having that shift of let's look at things from a different perspective. Let's look at something from a different angle. Let's look at it differently, right? And shift how we currently are looking through this. So this is something that we can really do with our kids in that process of teaching emotional regulation. So again, tell me in the chat where you feel like you are with that 1 to 4. Our next step, healthy coping strategies. So again, healthy coping strategies, these are things that are healthy methods that can help you cope and manage your emotions, manage your stress levels. For a lot of people, it's like, oh, I want to get exercise and get out and about and do things. For some people, it's hobbies. For some people, it's relaxation techniques, right? There's all kinds of different things out there. It's finding what works for you, and being able to have problem solving skills in this, to be honest, because it's okay. I'm facing this situation where I'm stressed out. I'm overstimulated. My emotions are high. What can I do in this moment to calm myself down, to cope better in a healthy way, right? So again, first statement for parents, I regularly use healthy coping strategies to manage my stress, such as exercise or hobbies. So how do you feel about your ability to manage your stress levels with healthy coping mechanisms? So 1 to 4, tell me in the chat where you feel like you are. For your teenager, I encourage and support my teen in finding and using healthy ways to cope with their stress. Again, are you able to help them find those ways, excuse me, that can help them in a healthy way manage that stress that they're experiencing, right? Where do you feel like you are in this? 1 to 4. All right. Our next one is our support system, which is so powerful, right? It's that supportive relationships, could be family, friends, peers, people that are in your corner, they're cheerleaders, they're making sure that you are healthy, that, they're the ones that are not feeding a fire. Okay. So I want to understand that it's not a support system where they're like on your side and talking trash about that person too. That's not healthy. That's not a healthy support system. So understanding that a healthy support system are the people that are going to encourage you, help you to change your perspective, help you to look at things in a different way, help you to calm down and relax, and just navigating that. And sometimes calling you out maybe when you're the one that's maybe not doing the right thing, right? I think that is what a support system truly is. And so here's the first aspect for you as a parent. I actively maintain supportive relationships to help manage my emotions and stress. Do you have a support system? And is it a healthy support system? So 1 to 4 in the chat, tell me where you feel like you are with this. And I feel like sometimes as homeschool mamas, we can feel really isolated, alone. We feel like disconnected from everybody else because we're not always, I mean, a lot of people do work, but some people are not working. You're home all the time with the kids, and maybe your spouse isn't home, and or you're a single parent and you just feel like you're doing all the things, and that support relationship, it's important to have. And maybe you don't feel like you have that right now. And then for your teenager, I teach my teen the importance of building and maintaining supportive relationships. So how do you feel about this? 1 to 4 in the chat. Do you feel like you're teaching your teenager the importance of building and maintaining supportive, healthy relationships for them in life and what that looks like? All right, our last one is empathy. So again, empathy is understanding, recognizing and understanding the emotions of other people. So understanding where somebody's perspective, where they're coming from, what they're experiencing, right? So number 1 is I understand and empathize with others' emotions, which helps in managing my interactions. So where do you feel like you fall with that? Do you feel like you are really good at empathy, or do you feel like you could work on your empathy a little bit better? And again, this is really hard in today's world and dynamic where it's, I mean, you look at politics alone, it's such a split thing, and empathy is non-existent for the most part on either side, right? Because it's like, how could you think this or say this? And how could you think this or say this? And there is absolutely no empathy of wanting to see from other people's perspectives or understanding. Okay. So there is that difference there. And that's something to be aware of, that empathy is such a powerful tool that so many people don't seem to want to have and use these days. So, and then I guide my teen in developing empathy and emotional intelligence to improve their interactions with others. So again, this is taking it to that next level of with your teenager. Are you teaching and educating them on how to develop their own empathy skills and their own emotional intelligence to improve those interactions and their regulation? Again, totally okay if you're a 1 or 2, very common, but tell me in the chat where you feel like you fall for this. And then, sorry, the baby's crying. She'll be okay for a second. So I want you to imagine something. Imagine a home with fewer conflicts and a harmonious family environment. Imagine a focused and motivated teen achieving their better grades independently on their own, right? Having the motivation to do the things they need to do. Imagine a teen handling challenges with resilience and a positive mindset. And imagine a teen building supportive relationships and communicating effectively. Right? Imagine this is your teen. This is your home. This is your life. How does that make you feel? Tell me in the chat. How does that make you feel? And if this is something you want to be reality for you and your teenager, tell me in the chat initiative. Tell me initiative in the chat. I want my teen to be able to take initiative. I want my teen to be able to regulate their emotions and manage stress. Okay. That is why we are here. This is what we do. All right. We've talked about this program. We enroll this program every fall and spring. It is a self-paced course that we do in Adulting 101. It is a very robust course, very different than your traditional homeschool classes. One, it's not a math class. It is a life skills course, but it also goes beyond just the teaching. We have groups in this. We have social interactions for the students, for the parents. We have parent support and education. I mean, there are so many parts and pieces to this that make it so much more engaging and fun and interactive, and truly for your student to understand and actually like retain the information, not just learn it and then be like, hey, that was fun, right? We actually like get them hands-on as best we can in a virtual environment, but it is very different than your typical life skills classes. And we cover a lot of really good things. So this is our Adulting 101 program. Again, like I said, we run it every fall and spring. Highly, highly encourage, if you have teenagers 15 and up, they need to take this course. Okay. Like, non-negotiable. They really need this course because we teach all the stuff we talked today. So we're going to actually teach your teenager about emotional regulation, how to manage stress. We're going to help them improve and increase their emotional intelligence as part of this program. It is all built into this. So if you want to learn more, feel free to drop adulting in the chat, or you message me, send me a message. I'm happy to chat about it as well. Just so you know, for our price codes right now, so we are at the full price mark. Our pre-sale and early bird are over for this go around. We always do an early bird and pre-sale, so make sure you're keeping up with us to know when those codes and stuff are happening. But right now we have 3 payment options. You can pay one-time fee, split it up over 4 months, or split it over 13 weeks. So just so that you're aware of that. We always do a bonus. So a bonus for this is going to be our one-on-one call with me for the first 5 that sign up for this program. Okay. So again, great opportunity for your teenager and preteens to kind of really learn those essential life skills. Here's some testimonials from some of our families that have participated in this. So students love it. The parents love it. It's a very, very different approach than your typical course, because again, I approach it as a coaching approach where I'm like, I want you to learn this stuff. I want that self-awareness to be there. And I just want this to be really powerful for our kiddos that go through it. So, and our parents too. If you want to learn more, you can, or grab your seat, scan the QR code there on the left. That will take you to our landing page for our program. If you want to jump on a call with me instead and maybe chat a little bit first or learn more about some of our other programs, we do multiple live talk courses over the fall and spring semesters for homeschoolers. So feel free to jump on that with the QR code there on your right, and we can talk about all the opportunities and kind of create a custom schedule for your kiddos on, what fits best and makes the most sense with their existing course load and everything. And all of our credits students can earn up to a full credit for, depending on the course. And yeah, so it's great. It's a great way to do that. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, reach out to me. I would love to answer them for you. Again, if you're watching this as a recording or replay, still drop those in the chat there in the comments, and I can definitely help answer this for you. But otherwise, thank you again so much for being here. I'm so glad to just have you here and kind of learning all of these fun things with me, because this stuff is so important and it's stuff that's not taught. There's not always curriculum for this. There's definitely not taught in public schools. And just something that we really want our kids to be equipped with so that they're ready for life after high school. So again, thank you guys. I look forward to seeing you next time.